I'm joined by the wonderful Jenny Osbourne, CEO of TPAS, and we're here today to talk about all things resident-tenant engagement and what the future is going to look like post-pandemic. So, Jenny, welcome along.
Oh, thank you. No, thanks for asking me along. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, and I suppose the timing of this is really, really good because obviously from TPAS's perspective, you guys are going to be so incredibly busy at this time, sort of helping shape the future of resident engagement, and not just through legislation, but also through actually there are better ways of sort of doing some of these things. So I'm really keen to explore this with you. But for those few people out there who haven't come across you before, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself? What's got you to where you are? What sort of drives you, and why you're doing what you're doing, really.
I'm going to be probably one of those people then that there's probably a lot of us that fell into housing. Didn't really know about housing before. So I joined TPAS as a kind of membership manager many years ago, and then took the chief exec role a few years ago as well. So yeah, never. I mean, again, I think it's helpful in some ways. I talk a lot about it. I didn't know what social housing was particularly before I joined TPAS, and I still remember that now, and that feeling of what is this world? What have I landed into? But I think, again, I'm sure everyone feels the same. Once you're in it, it's really hard to leave it because it is. I think it has got that mix for me. So, from a personal and professional perspective, it's got a mix for me of you are influencing things at a policy level. You are talking to ministers and you are talking to government and civil servants, but you're doing some really practical, really sensible, practical stuff as well. And just that kind of range is the reason I've stayed involved with tenant engagement. And it never stops, tenant engagement, does it? I mean, all of us that have been around a while have seen tenant engagement do that, haven't we, over the years? It's in fashion, it's out, it's in, it's out. And so that gives you challenges each time. That's sort of up and down. So I suppose that's a lot of the reason I've loved it and I stay with it but I am hoping this time that stops. The white paper should deliver the stop that I'm looking for to say this is it forever now. But that's the motivation, I suppose, is that I believe in it. And anybody that leads an organisation, if you don't fully believe in your mission and the vision for engagement, what it's about, it's about improving services, it's about saving people money, it's about people working together, it's about communities and a long-lasting thing. If you don't believe in that, then you won't be doing it. But I still firmly believe in that as much as the day I joined.
Yeah, and that's brilliant to hear, that sort of passion that to sort of lead the organisation, as I say, through some very interesting times. I mean, I find it sort of quite interesting that actually we're having to wait for sort of legislation to sort of be driving or changing the way that we sort of engage organisations. I just wondered what your thoughts were as to why it's sort of taking that to happen, and why we don't do this ordinarily, as it's just good business.
It's a right shame, isn't it, that we don't do it like ordinarily, and it's just not fixed in people's organisations as part of the culture. It is a shame. Very brief. I mean, I always talk. I have for years. I talk about tenant engagement, why you do it in a triangle of three things, and we've had to kind of talk about the three things in different ways over the years, depending where the sector's been at. So, the first thing for me is, why would you do engagement? Was the right business case to do it, isn't there? There's a bottom line reason to do it. Involve tenants in the services, they'll make them better for you, they'll spot things that you won't spot. All of that, there's clear evidence about how it's a business case. And we wind back, a few years ago, that was how we talked about it so much at TPAS. Bottom line, business case, because that seems to be the only way we could cut through and get people to talk about it. There's always been a social kind of community-based reason, if you like, to do engagement. Isolation, vulnerability of people, getting people involved that then get skills, that go on to have jobs. Again, multiple evidence of that. So we've always had those two sides of the triangle. What's been missing for a long time since the bonfire happened, is that we lost the regulatory side. We went way too far away, didn't we? We all know that. Then you have Grenfell. And it's only since that if we started to see that regulatory side of the triangle coming back at all. It's a real shame. Shouldn't be the reason people to engage. And I think the other two reasons are compelling. But if that's what it takes, and I think it does, you need all three, then that's fine by me. And that's why we've been pushing for the regulatory piece for a while. I think the difference now is the whole safety thing, that just drives all of those as well. That links to all of it. So I think we've got another layer in. It should be probably made a square by now, but I like the triangle. But it is a shame, and that's why culture. How do you change culture so that we had this conversation today? Hardwiring engagement into an organisation. We're talking about that again. How do you hardwire so that when a chief exec that gets it or a senior team that gets it leaves, it stays in the organisation? In some ways, regulation is the only way that will happen in many organisations, because they've got to do it, whoever the person in charge is. But yeah, I hope it's coming across that I want to win hearts and minds on this. This is about people fundamentally, engaging, respecting people, and you've got to believe in that or you don't.
Absolutely. I mean, I suppose, as I say, if the pink camper van was to make a comeback in this sort of decade, it would have to be an electric vehicle, I would assume.
Absolutely, yes.
To sort of do that. So let's sort of just take a step back and get your reflections on, the pandemic times that we've sort of lived in, and from your experiences and your observations, what's worked well about how organisations and landlords have engaged with their tenants and residents, and what could we have done better as a sector?
Gosh, I mean, it feels so long ago, doesn't it now? But I think thinking back to kind of those early days, and I think we've all talked about this many times. I'll be saying things people have heard before, but it was impressive how we all dropped on, how we all got on the phone calls. The humble phone call was back, and it was effective. So I think we've all learned a lot from that, and I hope we take that forward. That getting on the phones, a range of people in an organisation, not just the engagement staff, but lots of staff, talking to residents, how rich that is, how not scary it is, how useful it is, and how empowering it has been for staff members to be able to do that. I think if we take, I know could never have continued after the first few months, but I know organisations, and certainly at Stockport Homes, where I'm chair of, we're taking the elements from that learning of how can we keep some of that going? How can we change our services to say, let's keep in touch like that with the people that need it, but let's try and kind of free some capacity elsewhere. So I think if we take some of that learning forward, that will be really helpful. So I think that connection with tenants was great. I think the move to digital, of course, again, we've all talked about this infinitum, haven't we? But was impressive for most organisations. Stuff that we knew, I'd been to so many tenants meetings over the last 2 years to the pandemic. Oh, we're going to go digital. Oh, we're going to go hybrid. Oh, well, we didn't even talk about hybrid, did we, at that point? And it was all tentative, and it was a big thing. And then literally within 2 weeks it happened, and it wasn't the big thing everybody thought it was going to be, and it just happened, and people got on with it. So, that's the upside, wasn't it? It kind of cut through all of those conversations, negotiations, dancing around each other, and just got on with it. And I think that's a really powerful message as well. It definitely enabled people that weren't involved before to get involved. So yes, we had to sideline, I suppose, in some way, those that couldn't get on with the technology, but it's undoubtedly brought lots of different new people, new tenants engaged. Happy with that. I think what it quickly, though, exposed to me was how many tenants struggled with the technology, didn't have the skills or the tech. And I think we probably were starting to get into a narrative of, well, most tenants have got a smartphone these days, so they'll be able to do things. And I think it kind of stopped a few organisations in the tracks going, oh my God, we really didn't realise how hard this would be, or how many people can't get on. So I think there's some learning there for us all, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. And I wonder sometimes if, how much tenants and residents are actually involved in the design of those sort of services, at the front end there as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes. I just wondered, what are you picking up in terms of how have tenants' expectations changed as a result of COVID? Are they going to be demanding more of the landlords in the future? Are they going to be demanding different things from them?
I don't think anything has changed. I mean, let's go back again. Yeah, in the first few months, I think the landlord relationship was a really good one for most tenants. They understood the pressures the landlord was under. They work, I think, brilliantly with the repairs operatives in terms of all the COVID regulations. I think that was a really good period in that sense in terms of relations. And I think we all learned a lot from that. I don't think expectations, though, now we're kind of, coming out of it, have changed massively in terms of what's the number one for most tenants: repairs. Nothing's changed there. And of course, for many organisations, huge backlogs. and getting into properties we haven't been in for a while and going, oh my goodness, we've got some work to do here. So, and I think because tenants have been in those properties a lot longer, because they've been at home a lot longer, they've been seeing their neighbours a lot more, then there's different expectations, if you like, around, well, this isn't right. So I'm not sure is it necessarily COVID or the pandemic that's changed expectations, but I think social media, the media attention is more driving change in expectations. I think tenants are seeing, well, how I'm living is not right and I can ask for more. Let's rewind 2 years ago, not many tenants had heard of the ombudsman. I suspect if you think now, a lot more tenants have, all of those things are gathering speed and gathering momentum. But I do think priorities are still property condition, repairs. ASB has obviously still been an issue, certainly over the pandemic. But there's still that fundamental issue of not listening, getting caught up at the contact centre, still not getting put through to the right person, still being made to feel I'm a nuisance. That is still going on, unfortunately, and we've got to tackle that.
So where do you see, because you get into a lot of organisations, where do you see these beacons of innovation around engagement starting to happen? If I was to sort of say to you, which organisations do you smile and think, actually, they're really getting this? Where is this happening, and if so, where?
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, there's some really good organisations out there. I'm probably not going to name them because I think, because the people then immediately go off and contact them. But there's some good ones. Councils and housing associations, large and small. So this, let's get the myth out of there that only certain organisations can do this, or that councils struggle with this. Totally a myth, and let's put it to bed. So what are the good ones? I suppose I have to relate it. I can't not do to our engagement standards. They are the ones that have got culture sorted. That's fundamentally at the centre of it. How many times have we talked as a sector in the last 18 months about trust, accountability, those sort of things? The culture's key. So we've got, when we go out and talk to boards, we're really saying to them, do you believe in it? Do you really think tenants have got something worthwhile to tell you? Can you, do you actually believe that tenants have something worthwhile to say and you're going to act on it? Because if that culture's not there, forget about the rest of the things you need for engagement. And we think there are 7 other things you need to do engagement well. And so the good organisations have got all of those in place. They've got good scrutiny. They've got good governance and accountability and transparency. They've put resources into it. They're not expecting one person to do this half of their week as well as something else. They've put a team in, and they're taking the rest of the organisation with them. I think the good ones at the moment are really working hard to take a step back to say, we have structures, we've had them for a while, they're okay, but can we start again and go and have a good, honest conversation with uninvolved tenants and ask again, what do they need from us? Now, that's always hard. I'm not going to lie, it's dead hard to do that. But the organisations that are doing that and really taking it seriously and saying, yeah, and if you're going to tell us it's bad, Jenny, well, that's okay, but we'll do something about it. So I think really taking a step back, trying to get uninvolved tenants, looking at your data, saying who's never contacted us, who doesn't report a repair, who never gets involved in anything, is a particular estate that doesn't do anything, whatever it might be, being a bit more forensic, I think, and analytical in an approach to engagement. This is not, I hate using this phrase, but let's just use it for ease, fluffy stuff. It's data, it's curiosity, it's insight, it's analytical. And it takes time. And I think one thing that Fiona McGregor keeps saying from the regulator is get on with it. And she's giving us a right good steer there, because we've still got probably 2 or 3 years before the regulatory regime will be in place. So come on, no one's got an excuse, have they? Get on with it. You've got plenty of time to deal with your trust issues, all the things you need to put in place.
I mean, it's an interesting sort of contrast. I mean, a lot of the work that DIN does is outside of the housing sector, looking at how other businesses engage with their customers. And you're absolutely right. I mean, they engage significantly in terms of understanding what the customer problems are, because they see it as essential to the business case and being a profitable or an impactful organisation. So it's good to hear that organisations are doing that, but this is hard work. I mean, I think one of the things I was sort of wondered your view around is that we've had discussions that actually, landlords are no different to any other businesses, the big businesses, but ultimately they are a service provider. They are providing a service to tenants and residents here, and yet we tend to view it in a different way to the likes of how Tesco's or Asda or Amazon might actually sort of impact. And ultimately, tenants and residents will judge a landlord in the same way they will judge any other sort of service provider. And I just wondered, what your thoughts might be for organisations in terms of, well, actually, how can we be more like those organisations and really invest in this as part of that business case?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, there's been lots. I mean, I think it is a different relationship. I mean, it is a different relationship. But yes, you're right. That expectations of service, customer service, speed, ease of access to things has just shot up exponentially, hasn't it, over the last few years? And we've been slow in housing, haven't we, to keep pace in that? There's no two ways about it. But so when a lot of us do these kind of exercises, don't we, with people saying, who do you trust? What's the brand do you trust and why and what? And it is all of those things, but it is a different relationship with your landlord. But I think people should embrace that and actually enjoy that. That gives you something else, I think, to work with as a landlord organisation. We do a slide, I do a slide regularly about kind of, what are the big issues in housing at the moment? And top of that is kind of, net zero, building safety, building new homes, consumer regulation coming. There's about 12 or 13 things you could say. But the key thing is, well, yeah, but do your tenants think they're the same big things? Are they their priorities are kind of on this list? And if they are, then great. But how do you know? How do you know they're the same? And I think that's what goes to a bit of your question, I think, getting back to it, was the disconnect between tenants' priorities and the organisation's vision and where they were going. That's what's grown over the last few years. And this happens in sectors, I get it, but tenants have said, in sessions we've been doing, what really annoys me with my landlord is they spend too much time talking about the new build. And we've been saying that for ages. How you talk about new build but don't talk about your tenants you currently have is a massive problem. And I think that disconnect has grown up for many reasons, the pressure we're all under to build more homes, whatever it might be. But that's what we've got to get back to, getting closer together on priorities and then delivering on together.
Yeah, I mean, I always found it interesting. One of our last sort of study visits we did was to a Microsoft store in London, and it was looking at their sort of CSR work in the community, so looking at digital poverty, and it was really interesting. The manager they'd recruited to do all of their community engagement was from the social housing sector. So it's fantastic to sort of see that actually there's things that we can share with other organisations.
Yeah.
But final question then, Jenny. So, I mean, if there was one thing you wanted to leave sort of DIN members with in terms of, what to do next around tenant engagement, what would be that one thing that you would want to sort of share with them or thought?
Oh God, they're probably going to hate me because I'm going to come out with something they want to hate. But it is with the basics. We are back to looking again at the basics of housing management. We have got to get back at looking at repairs. We have got to get back to looking at our complaints processes. We've got to put some faith back in some of our tenants that we know how to run a landlord business and we know what we've got to get right, which is around gas and all of that, around repairs. Let's get on with that. I think seeing every opportunity that you have with residents as an engagement opportunity. Again, I think we'd drifted too far to say, well, engagement is about scrutiny panels in it, or being tenants on the board, or those even co-creation groups, and they all have a part to play, 100%. But actually, engagement is way much more than that. And I think particularly trying to get boards to see that every interaction, well, have we done that to the best of our ability? Is our website good enough? How does our contact centre talk to people? And just making sure that those day-to-day contacts are with staff that are empowered to help tenants where they can. Let's stop having to go up the chain for everything. Let's empower staff to make decisions for tenants that make their lives better. So I'd be looking at website, contact centre. How is that better every day for a tenant calling or ringing in?
Yeah, get the basics right. That's a great way to finish there, Jenny. Well, look, it's always lovely speaking to you. Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us today. I look forward to working with you again in the future.
Thanks very much. Really enjoyed it.